president of Hillsdale College, Dr. Larry Arnn. All right, so, Doctor, Hillsdale is like one of the few, you might be the only university that doesn't take any federal funding and stuff. And you guys seem to have your head screwed on perfectly straight.
Yeah, well, we remember what we're for, and they don't these days. Remember the way the funding works. It turns the kid into a revenue stream from a third party. And that means, there are a few rich colleges. You put a list of some of them up there on the board. But the rest of them, they're getting 40 and 80 to 80% of their money from the government. And they just want more kids. And then if the kids don't pay the money back, the institution is not at risk. And so it's a reverse incentive. Like Harvard, the last time I looked, Harvard was getting more than $1 billion a year from the government.
Yeah.
And Harvard's not that big, it's probably 25,000 students, graduate and undergraduate. And they've got that endowment that you've got up on the board there too. And they're the rich ones, and they're sealed off from any economic pressure.
Yeah.
Well, don't give them the money. Betsy DeVos, when she was Secretary of Education, and Linda McMahon, who's just been appointed, is going to be great. And Betsy DeVos, Princeton made a public confession that they had been discriminating on race from their founding.
Right.
When James Madison was there, by the way. And so she wrote him a letter and said, you're not supposed to do that. You can't get the federal money. You need to explain this to us. Well, don't give them the money.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things too, Doctor, is, we hear all this from you select members on the Hill, let's just say, where they're like, oh, these student loans are predatory. These, the poor kids shouldn't have to pay this back. Never have I ever heard anybody, especially on the left, go out and say, hey, colleges, you're charging these kids too much money. They have never said that, and they just keep pumping money into these student loans.
Well, there's probably too many kids going to college now. You said a good thing. By the way, I could listen to your show all day.
Well, thank you, sir.
College, Hillsdale College is very difficult to get into, very elite. Everybody's got to read the great books and study physics and chemistry and biology. And that's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. People should get a good K through 12 education. And, we've helped to start 100 charter schools. Everybody learns Latin, and everybody learns advanced mathematics. Mm-hmm. Everybody learns to read by the time they get out of kindergarten. And that's, you can do that. But the reason is we're on task. And if you graduate from such a school, you know the basic equipment to be a functioning human being, an excellent citizen.
Sure.
And that can be done in high school. And then after that, if you want to go on further, God bless you. But it's a big effort, and you have to do it for the sake of the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And training to get a job is cheaper than that. Yeah. And you don't have to do that. And I might give you an honorary degree. You might give you an honorary degree in common sense.
Well, I appreciate it. That'll be my only degree, actually. But our nation, like you said, sir, you teach people fundamental skills that you think people should have in your charter schools and things like that have fundamental things that people need. But our nation's report card is terrible right now. 70% reading proficiency, 72% math proficiency, and there's a bunch of things, other two, that we are performing in the 30s on a lot of levels. And we've continued to pump money, and the more money we give, the worse the scores get.
See, it's top heavy. More than half the employees in public education, and there are over 10 million such employees, more than half of them are not teachers.
That's true.
And that means that there's a 50% haircut before any money gets to a school. And and it's a very top-down system. And the Department of Education gives away money with massive strings attached. And so they're leveraging much more money with the money that they give. And and here's one historical point that's of fundamental importance. Education was terribly important to the founders of the country. Yeah. And unlike many today, they actually had one. And so they gave an enormous subsidy to education in the Northwest Ordinance, one of the 4 organic laws of the country. It's in 1787, the same year the Constitution was written. And what they did was they took the Western lands, which is the biggest asset any government ever hold, and they provided to sell 63 of the 64 sections of every township into private hands, and one section reserved for education in each township. And that was given as an endowment to the states.
Yeah.
And there was no federal regulation. See? So in disbanding the Department of Education, which I pray they will do, and which they say they intend to do.
Right.
And President Trump is a very swift and resolute man, as he says. They should alienate the revenues back to the states. The states can be more accountable. And then
I completely agree.
Dismantle all this mess.
Oh, Doctor, I completely agree. Unfortunately, we got to leave it right there, sir. I could listen to this all day because I agree with everything you're saying. Dr. Larry Arnn, we appreciate it, sir.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.